unmanned tech-profit tech organization preparing talented youth in conflict-affected areas to enter the digital economy as software developers and tech entrepreneurs. Today, we are doing another session of a series with founders and investors of technology companies in Turkey, where we get to learn the stories behind how they built their businesses. We will also hear from them about how businesses can adapt quickly during COVID-19 and what opportunities they believe will spring from the crisis. So before we start, a quick round of ground rules for this session. The conversation between Efecan and I will take about 30 minutes. Please use the chat function on the right-hand side of your screen to leave comments and ask your questions. You can do that now or at any time during the session. Our team will be selecting some of your questions, which I will ask the speaker in the last 30 minutes of our session. So your microphones will remain muted during the session, but feel free to put your cameras on. It's always nice to see your beautiful faces. And please note that this session is being recorded. We are able to do this speaker session because of a partnership between our team at Recoded, Techstars, the GIZ PAP program, Promotion of Economic Prospects in Turkey, and Impact Hub Istanbul. We are teaming up to provide opportunities for youth across Turkey to enter digital economy through tech and career training. So now back to today's speaker. Efecan is co-founder of Kolay, which is a people platform for companies focused around HR operations. Kolay is used by more than 1,000 companies and 200,000 users in more than 10 countries. Efecan started his technology adventure at the age of 14 by writing code for fun. After a period of tinkering with a lot of stuff, he dived deep into the world of programming. At the age of 16, he published an online TV aggregation software, and it was downloaded more than 1 million times just right after the first year of ADSL in the country. After that success, it became clear for him to pursue a career in technology. After working in technology companies during his university years from day one, he founded Kolay with his fellow co-founders and started his entrepreneurship marathon in 2015. And I also want to send my loves and regards to Gizem here, who is co-founder of Efecan, because Kolay was also helping us with a lot of different stuff regarding our fellow students. So I really appreciate all your support. And Efecan, it's really a great pleasure to have you as a speaker in this session, especially during this time of radical changes for businesses around the world. I would like to thank you so much in Kolay for your all support. Welcome.
Thank you.
So would you like to take a moment to introduce yourself, Efecan?
Of course. Hi all, I am Efe. I am one of the 4 co-founders of Kolay. Ethem already introduced me very well, so I can't add anything to that. But you can think of me as a software engineer who didn't study computer science, who turned entrepreneur 5 years ago. So I hope I can be any benefit to you in this session.
Great, thank you, Efecan. I'm sure that it will be a very valuable conversation because as you mentioned, let's start from there. I was going to ask a little bit more about entrepreneurial journey, but as I mentioned in the intro that you worked as a software developer while you were studying, and you were studying actually geological engineering rather than software engineering or computer sciences. Could you tell us more about studying something else but becoming a developer then entrepreneur? Because our community includes a lot of people who wants to be a software developer or they are software developer but in their junior phases. So it could be a very related topic for them.
Of course. So like since from the first year of high school, I was curious all about technology. So with that curiosity, I tried everything from programming to server installation to using dozens of different kinds of Linux distributions and to until trying to build the actual hardware of the computer itself. So that's why I tried everything. And I learned almost all parts of the computer here and there. And first I came to Istanbul work in a technology company while trying to get into a university. So naively, let's say, like it was not a well-taught, well-educated guess, but I naively believe that I know enough computer science to keep myself learning without any academical education. So because of that, I wanted to get into my second best interest, which is earth sciences. So I believe that if I study another part of engineering and I can develop myself in programming and technology, I can have two different kinds of set of skills. And so because of that, I decided to go geological engineering in Istanbul Technical University. I don't think it was a bad decision. Of course, I will not say to anybody to don't study computer science. It is a perfect place, perfect field to study. But any kind of university education, I think, lets us learn how to learn. Like because of most of the university curriculum are not teaching us to be a better programmer, but to be a better computer scientist. So in the real world, in the actual business world, the practical courses are more important, and the engineering fields are not filled with that kinds of practical classes. So I think that was a good choice. So from like even before starting my academic studies, I was working in a technology company. So 11 years ago, I completed my high school, actually not 11, like 12 years ago, I completed high school and came to Istanbul to work in a company without thinking about any university or anything like that. So while working there, I saw that even studying any kind of field and getting the diploma has a great impact on the salary. So that's why I pursued on getting into a university, and I decided that I need to study in Istanbul Technical University. I had only one university I want to get in, so I worked for that, and I get in there, and I continued working full-time, not part-time. I continued working full-time while studying part-time. So wow. It was generally reversed for other people, but I was working and studying as a side project.
Did anyone mentored you about this? Did anyone give you an idea, or did you figure this out? Because you said like this was a kind of a naive decision back then, but I agree that it's a good decision. And sometimes people ask to me like, I want to become a coder, I want to be a developer, which university should I go? Then I usually say like study something else and learn coding if you're not want to science about computer more going in deeper, you are just going to code. I think it makes total sense. And I would like to ask another question as well. How did you get into your first job? How did you come to Istanbul?
So let me start with the first question. I don't think studying any university field blocks you from becoming a programmer or software developer or even a software engineer. So don't put that limit on yourself if you are studying history. So like I have a friend who studied like philosophy, and he is one of the best developers I know. He doesn't have any technical academic background, but like he is working in a Dubai right now in a big technology company. I think he is one of the VPs or something like that. And he studied econometry, for example. I have like a lot of friends like that. So don't
Mhm.
limit yourself with the field of study. The second question, like after completing my high school, I was already trying to do projects online. Like I was building blogs and websites. As you told the introduction, I built a lot of desktop software in the year 2006, like almost 2 decades ago. There was no ADSL, and I built a uh, TV watching software, like TV aggregation software, like Netflix, but for TV. Of course, there was no Netflix back then. So it was a tool that I gathered their streaming URLs from TV stations' websites, and I gathered them and I built a software, and it's downloaded more than 1 million times. And I didn't think in Turkey back then they had 1 million ADSL subscribers. So that shaped my career somehow. And while doing that, after I completed high school, I had nothing to do. So I decided to apply for jobs, and I started working in a company as a remote support assistant. Like I was giving live assistance to people that need help with their servers, like like like small companies who want to build their own websites but are buying servers through the company's website, and I was helping them. So I started as a remote support assistant. It was not a programming job, but I was doing programming, of course. But nobody wanted to hire me as a software developer since I didn't have any actual experience with it. So while working in that company as a software assistant, sorry, a support assistant, I saw a problem in the company. They were sharing all the reports at the end of month with Excels. That Excel includes how many hours you work, like how much money you earn with the time you logged into tools, and there are like dozens of different numbers. And I built a software to parse that Excel and generate a report to show every employee in the company how much money they're going to make at the end of the month. I was 19 back then, but by the way, I built that tool as a side project for free. So I didn't get any money for it. Like it was a side project I wanted to build that is helpful for me, helpful for my teammates, and somehow helpful for the company. Uh, so it really worked very well, but the company didn't hire me as a software developer. I was 19. I didn't have any academic background. I didn't study. I didn't work software developer in my previous experiences. It was my first experience as a legal employee. So after I decided that I need to find a job that I can try my new coding skills. So after that, I started in another company.
By the way, I see that from that point, your entrepreneurial muscles are starting to build up because you are giving the service for free or kind of beta or demo, providing it the value first. Then this didn't happen maybe in that company, but you could have been offered another position as well. I think you have it in your character a little bit. So talking about these entrepreneurial muscles, how did you start your own company after working around in different companies? How did you transition into a kind of from a staff to build your own thing? What was moving you, and what were the challenges, and what were the positive sides of this journey?
So as you said, I was very keen to start a company, even in the high school. Like of course, we don't have time to explain everything, but in high school, I was earning money by coding small websites to the small companies in my street at my hometown. So like I earned my first money through Google Ads in 2007. And with that money, I bought myself a cell phone. So if you don't consider these things as a company, of course they weren't a company, but they were making me money. When you're in high school, every money is good money. So after a period of time, I saw that the projects I was working in was not the projects that I wanted to build. So I wanted to build my own idea into a reality. Since I have enough programming skill to build something from ground up, I decided after working 5 years, I decided to start my own company. But of course, there are a lot of different experiences that led me to do that. For example, the last company I worked was called Startup Kitchen. So they were building startups, like they were earning money from other companies, and the money that they earned, they were funding their own small startups. So in that company, I was working in 2 small startups as technical co-founder. So of course, I didn't know what technical co-founder means back then. I was just doing the coding stuff and building the product itself. But slowly I saw that it is possible, even as a single developer, to build a product that lets you earn money. So with that decision, and of course, to be honest, I was doing a lot of side projects, freelance projects and stuff like that. And I earned enough money for myself to feed me for 2 years without working, because I was not getting any money from my parents. And I was all like saving money for the worst case scenario. So in a point, I had enough money to support me for 2 years, and I was 24 years old. So I like my university education was still continuing. So I decided that I need to quit my job and finish my university, because I had more than 1.5 more years I need to study to get my diploma. So I quit to continue my university studies. In parallel, I was researching a couple of ideas to build a product, to write it to my CV, like as a project. Like I did from ground up myself, and I started building Kolay. So it ended up being a very good product and very good idea in that period of time, and it started getting more attraction. And at the final year of my study, like I decided to build a company, like a real legal company. So it's all started while actually studying my last year.
Great. Sounds very good. I liked your story in general, Efecan. So I would like to ask the 2 questions here. One, how did you find the idea? This is, I think, very important thing. Where you were looking, how did you find the problem and so on, and how did you decide to solve? Then the second is like, when did you actually decide to build the legal company? What was the trigger there?
So the idea was coming from a pain that I had. Like, as I said, I was all saving money, but I was spending money only to go abroad, to travel. So while working full time in my last company, I decided to make an interrail travel. I wanted to buy a 2 weeks of train ticket, unlimited, to travel all European countries as much as I can. And I wanted to, of course, we need a visa here in Turkey to go Europe. So I need to apply for a visa almost a month before, since it was my first visa and I didn't have any passport. So I requested from the company that I was working, how many days I have as a leave right. So they couldn't right away gave me a straight answer. So I like went a couple of times to different people in the company, the accountant, the HR guy, and like I was talking with everybody, calling and emailing, and nobody told me a number. Like I was expecting a number like 10 days. You have 10 days.
Yeah.
But I saw that it didn't work like that. So I decided to go to the guy, and he put a big folder in front of me and said to me that find your name in that folder.
Yeah.
So of course I didn't know anything, how many working days I have, how do you earn a leave balance? And he told me, find your name and find the previous leave request you made and call, sum them in a calculator and subtract it from 14 days, which is a legal right that government gives. So like, what is that? Like,
doesn't make at all.
It
doesn't make sense at all.
Sense. Like I had 3 days vacation before then. I need to subtract it from 14. That means 11 days. But why do you take too long to do that? So as a software engineer, I was imagining that they had a panel that they write my name and they see 11 days. But of course, it wasn't like that.
Yeah.
And the idea came like that. So I researched online. There wasn't a tool like that in Turkey, but in other countries there was. In Turkey, there are old school traditional desktop software that they need to spend a lot of money to build the servers and like licenses and maintenance backups. So that's why small companies had no choice but to use paper and Excel. So I decided to build that idea in the company that I work, and they didn't wanted to build that idea because it was a business application, and the company, the startup kitchen, was building more end user applications like cool, like they were trying to build the next Spotify, but not the boring HR tool. So after that, I decided to quit and go to university, and in parallel, do that idea a reality.
Yeah, awesome. This B2B, B2C thing goes into a deeper conversation. Maybe we can go back with the questions and so on. But when did you actually decide to legalize when did you understand the attraction was enough, or how was that initial steps?
So the legal foundation of the company, we waited until the last moment. Like for almost 18 months, there was no company. Even we were selling to other companies, we were trying to prepare the invoice through another friend's company. So until the last moment, we didn't found any company because it needs money to be founded. And we didn't know how to do it. So we were in talk with a couple of angel investors, and they decided to fund us. But of course, we didn't say that we don't have any legal company yet.
They assumed that you have.
Yes. Like if you are talking with investors, of course, they assume you have a company. And like we were in talk with them like for, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. And they decided they want to invest, and they requested a IBAN from us to send the money for like the company IBAN, and we didn't have. And we tried to give our own IBAN to get the money, but they say, you have to found a company, like it's not legal to do that. So luckily there was Aisha working in the company. Like she was very good for us. She didn't tell the investors. Like she was like a general secretary of the Angel Investor Network. And she said, I will not tell this to investors. I have the money. Let's build the company with some part of that money. So she sent the money to our actual personal accounts, because in order to found a company, you need to send the money through your personal account because you are building the company. So like if we were get the money and run away. We could, but we didn't, and we founded the company. As at the same day, we got the investment.
That's a great story. I love that you are waiting till the last moment. I think it is a very wise thing. I built a company before having a customer, which was not a good thing at all. So I like the lean approach that you followed, and it's nice that you
By the
were.
way, it wasn't lean back then. Like we didn't have money to build the company, so we had to. Like we have five
Compulsory lean.
customers. We have 5 customers that are paying to us through PayPal, but we didn't have any company, so it's out of necessity we did do that. But after, of course, we learned that there's a thing called lean approach and MVP. So we did without our willingness, let's say.
Yeah, we do learn sometimes by ourselves, then learn the framework or the things as entrepreneurs time to time. So I would like to come back to this COVID-19 issue, Efecan. It's a big global pandemic right now, and we haven't seen something like this for almost a century. How is this changing the way you do business in Kolay, and how it's changing the way you help your clients?
So, to be honest, COVID didn't directly affect us. So it has more effect on our users, which are small companies, small and medium-sized companies that are in very different kinds of sectors. So the COVID affected them and indirectly affected us.
Mm-hmm.
So as a matter of fact, we are seeing more and more companies trying our solution and planning to migrate their old school enterprise software system. So in some part, it is going to affect us in a positive way, but in short term, of course, the revenues of the companies drop. So our immediate revenues are dropped. But I believe in mid to long term, our plans will be like, our numbers will be better than we were planned 4 years ago. So it will definitely accelerate the use of cloud software and software as a services. I know here we are young people, and we are born with YouTube, born with Netflix or Spotify. But if you think about a company which is more than 30, 40 years old, they were using the tool for years and years, so they didn't need to change it. But now they need to change it because they cannot go to office right now. So they cannot reach their internal servers. So they cannot, if there's a problem in the office with an old school server, there's no way to fix it, right? So that's why they started looking for us. But of course, it is affected us. In short term, our revenues dropped more than half. So we needed to cut a lot of budgets. Like almost we cut 45% of our expenditure monthly. So in order to be alive. But I am happy because I know that after everything passes, which will definitely some in 6 months or 12 months, in 2 years, in a day, like in a day, we will wake up and everything is better. So we are seeing it as a stepping stone to the future. But in other parts of things, like, of course, we are a technology company. Like, for example, in the office, everybody was using notebook and everybody need to use Wi-Fi. Everybody was prohibited to use USB storage to send files and stuff like that. So that's why transitioning to working from home was very easy for us. Like in a day, we started working 100% remotely, and we are not going to go back to working 100% in the office from now on, indefinitely. So it accelerated our remote working preference, let's say. We were planning it, but we were growing so fast. We were like getting a lot of customers. We were getting a lot of advertisements around the country. So we didn't have time to plan a transition to work from home before, but COVID forced us. And it is a good thing. And we didn't have a single problem working from home. And I'm the only one in the office right now.
Yeah, I think for technology companies, this crisis is kind of a chance for young people as well, like who is involved with the technology, because it's like you said, it's shifting some changes, just pushing us to change. And we had similar experiences in Recoded as well. Like we switched to 100% online boot camps in less than 1 week. We decided, and then our trainers, our lead, the whole team went just kind of a marathon. Then we moved everything online. We were very familiar with working remote as individual, although it was not the culture. We didn't have too much problem there as well, but we needed to push everything to online after this thing. So what do you think, what opportunities do you see for startups? What is going to be in the after COVID-19 when everything is fixed? And before going to that, I want to ask another related question with Kolay. But in general, I want to learn for an entrepreneur, which areas are the initial places to cut the expenditures? What should be? Of course, it differs from company to company or the phases of the company and so on. But what will be your general advice to entrepreneurs about this?
So like we have 35 employees right now, and we have like a lot of ads, spendings and stuff like that. So we were investing a lot of money to grow faster. So of course we stopped investing to grow faster, and we are planning to grow organically in the next, let's say, months. So of course 75% of all expenses in all startups I know, let's say almost all startups I know, are employee salaries. So currently, with the government support and our team's support, we managed to cut down without firing anybody from the company. So currently, some part of the salaries are reduced to save the company's future, and we needed to get a investment from internal investors, and we need to reduce the number of cool things we buy, like the coffees, like since nobody is at the home, like the stuff that we spend to office are cut down, the advertisements cut down more than 70%. So we cut everything non-essential. Of course, my team was very helpful to find some kind of way to keep the wheel going. So we cut everything non-essential as a summary.
Yeah, I think this is a very important chance to unite as well, like you said, because everybody decides let's make this thing going and let's do whatever needs to be done. I think it's a great team spirit. So I think we are getting some questions, so I would like to jump into. I had some more questions, but maybe we can come back. If there's anything else you'd like to add, please add. Otherwise, I will go into other guest questions for you.
Yeah, it will be better to go with the question.
Okay. Hussein is asking if you could please give us two main tips to get the intellectual property rights before the registration. For example, if he talks about his idea in a public event, about his research achievements, etc., how we can protect his intellectual property?
So I think it is a volatile question. because the idea only doesn't work anything. The idea is just a sentence that you are trying to build your company on. So if somebody learns that sentence from you and builds a better company than you, so it will happen sooner or later. So don't be afraid of telling your ideas. Of course, idea has importance. It's important, but the most important thing is the execution, the thing that you are doing to build a successful startup. But of course, there are edge cases. So if you have a academic paper that you are trying to build your company on, I think it will be better to go a legal team to get the patent. But if it's not something patentable, let's say, don't bother with anything legal, anything. So, because up until your idea is famous and it is earning money, it has no value to anybody. It's zero. The executions that you do is adds a one in front of it, and so everything you do good adds a zero at the end of that number. So if you're only asking me about the idea, just do it, like publish it, and do a MVP website, build a blog, WordPress website to gather feedback from people.
Thank you, Efecan. This is also a question that I've been asked like many times, like when they learn that I work in Recoded, they say like, I have an idea, I want to code this and it will be awesome. Then I'm asking, what is your idea? Because I'm interested in startups, entrepreneurial area and so on. I'm asking like, what is your idea? And then they say like, I cannot tell. Then I say it doesn't make any sense, because you will need a team, you will need investment, you need to somehow tell some people. But of course, there are some cases like patent and so on. But other than that, I think ideas are
when we
just to
founded
communicate and improve.
When we founded Kolay, there was more than 100 different companies around the world almost doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. And nobody succeeded in Turkey. And also, we found that more than 5 startups tried to build the tool that we built, and they failed. So we don't build rockets. We are not building a high-tech startup. So it's a HR software, but we add the user experience on top of that to build something better, and we execute it in a way that we can sell. Like we are selling as hell right now. Almost all startups, in Turkey use Kolay, but they didn't use anything before us. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm selling the idea is nothing. You build it. If a team will steal your idea and build something better, they will do it somehow. Yeah. They will find a way to work around your idea and they will build it. If it's not patent, of course.
Yeah. If it's so easy to steal, then it's not a good business either, because you should have a kind of a competitive advantage. Either you need to have a kind of business domain there, or very super great coders that no one could code similar to that, which is not very likely, because I think it's codable by many people. Anyways, I will go to another question from Hussein. He's asking, what were the challenges you faced while you were like registering your company and like protecting trade name, etc.? I understand that Hussein is having some problems about this, and I would like to add that Hussein is from Iraq. So
okay,
what were the things when you were building Kolay?
So we didn't have any legal problems. We didn't have any patent or name, like trademark problems. We didn't even register the trademark for the first 2 years. Like We didn't know that we needed to do that, but who will use our name if it's worth zero? So, but like if you have any question specifically that I don't know, you can communicate me through LinkedIn or email, and I try to specifically answer your question to help. But we didn't have any legal problems, and I know no company that actually has, because the trademark is something changeable. Like if someone before us registered the name Kolay İK, we would have changed it in a day.
I think it's not any more relevant with the like fast companies, like software companies, because we can build the products quite fast regarding like products in other kind of services. Mm-hmm. We can ship it very fast. We can change it very fast. And I think trademark, as you said, could be changed very easily in a software. Then you can change your advertisement, etc. But it was hard for some products, more for conventional businesses. Mm-hmm. But I don't think so that it is anymore the problem. But Hussein, as I can understand, is going through some problems, and he's asking for specific advice how he can protect his project. So he didn't register it yet, and he's scared like it will disappear if he explains it in a public event or a conference, and he doesn't want to lose the effort he did, the researches, etc. So he wants to build a stable grounding before that. What would be your advice for a person who is there?
So like, as I said earlier, if somebody going to listen your idea in a conference and replicate it in the next day, then this idea is not a good one. So an idea shouldn't be that fast replicable, let's say copyable by other people. So, but if it's something very high tech, you can just contact me and I will guide you through the ways. But like, I founded Kolay, and I was like, before founding my company, before even finding the name of the company, I was going all of the startup events. Like I went to, I had like the things that you put on your neck. I had these things, more than 200 of them, and almost half of them was before I founded Kolay, and I was going all the events and telling my ideas to everybody. Like if they were going to steal it, they were going to steal it anyway. So I was explaining, sending mail. I was rejected for like hundreds of different investors. So as I said, it doesn't have any importance, but you can contact me if you want to get help about the legal stuff if you have some specific things. But just build something. Like I can only say that build something that people can talk on and feedback, like give feedback over it. Even a small free blog means thousands of hours of work. I remember there was a startup called Stajyum.net. It's a startup for newly graduate peoples to find internship, or like even for the students. And I remember that their first website was a free WordPress website. Mm-hmm. And they started like that. And they were going to all conferences and showing them their website, but it's just a website. Like there was a form and just you can apply it. And in the night, they just read through the applications, email, and manually put up new pages for companies. So the idea was companies need to find interns, and interns need to find companies. How we can make them in a single platform. And they founded a web blog which take 15 minutes. And after that, they got investment. They like hired people. They built the website from scratch again. But in the first MVP phase, it was free. Just do it that way.
That makes total sense, Efecan. Thank you very much for your advice. And there are a lot of, I don't know if you're saying coding or not, but there are a lot of, now we have enormous amount of no coding solutions. We can use a lot of software to integrate each other. There are a lot of products there actually to build an MVP without even coding. I think it's just providing something really tangible people could use, experiment, and feed you back with their comments, their pain points, and so on. So you keep developing the product. Thank you, Efecan, for sharing your ideas. And I would like to ask Jamie's question. Why do you think other startups, you mentioned that other startups building HR software as well, but why did they fail? And what did you do differently and correctly?
So we found out, like I'm talking specifically for Turkish cases, because there are a lot of startups succeeded in other countries. But for Turkish cases, it was like most of the HR tools are built by the HR people themselves. So HR people wanted to build a company and hire the software developer, and by telling, try to build the software. But what they did was, there was papers that HR people were using, and they replicated it on a website. So it didn't change anything. It didn't help any company, and it didn't scale. And they didn't think of a business model that can differentiate themselves between a simple Excel. Like Excel is a free tool. Like you already have it. And more than 90% of the companies were using Excel when we started. And we were telling that, yeah, you are doing these things with Excel, but you will do this better on Kolay, but you give money. So they, of course, they don't want to do it better. It's enough for them to do it as they are doing at the moment, and they don't want to give extra money. So we did a reverse engineering, let's say. In our founding in our 4 co-founders, nobody is related to HR. We didn't know HR. We learned the HR by doing experiments, and like there were a lot of complicated problems, and the solution to that problems was very complicated, like in the big old school tools. And like we saw that, why do they make that complicated? Like they can just put a simple input there, and when you click it, it does that. But because in the old times, the paper is put directly on the computer, and it doesn't have any relation with the physical and analog world. So since we didn't know that, we needed to reinvent how HR processes work in a cloud environment. So I think that's why we are more successful, let's say. Like we are not successful yet, because what is success? But let's say we are more successful than most of the HR tools in Turkey.
It's a very valid point, I guess. You mean it was kind of liberating for you as well, because you were not constrained with the old thinking or old system with the HR, right? Because they built that systems while they were using pen and paper and told some coder, they coded into it, but they were not improving the process, or they were not thinking about it. So it's a great chance for you to liberate you to think more freely, more out of the box. It's
exactly.
Nice point.
Definitely. Like you need to work and try and build a better one, so nobody can copy it. Like nobody can copy Kolay right now, because it took for us 3 years to build it. Nobody can copy in a day.
Yeah, sure. Because there are a lot of pain points that you go through with different companies. You solve different problems every day, maybe like atoms or very small problems, but it accumulates in the end of 3 years in a huge amount of work, and it's not easy to replicate anymore.
And it's also, it's not just the software. Like even somebody comes and like 100% copies our tool, like the software development team is 35% of our workforce. Like there are salespeople that know how to sell an HR cloud solution, and it took years to build that knowledge. The presentation, our success team, there are like accountants that know how to get money, because we are automatically charging people from their credit cards. There's no like long-term payment options, and like there are a lot of things that you build over time that it cannot be copyable. Of course, some people can copy everything that we do, but we will be 3 years ahead of them.
Sure. I think it's the hard part to copy this like culture, these processes that you make these improvements little by little. Software could be replicated, I think, in a way, but the other parts that you envision, the bonds you have been creating with the customers and so on, it's really hard to come after, I guess. Was there a point you thought quitting and moving on to something else in like very hard periods, or that you were discouraged? Is there any point that you think about these kind of things?
Of course. And I believe most of the founders did, because I remember the first 2 years was very hard. And the first year, the first year was like hell. There was no revenue, no sales, no other employee than us. In short, we had no money, and we were burning through our savings. And I remember a time when my co-founder and I sat in a McDonald's to go over our current options. Like it was 4 years ago or something like that. And we saw that we had no cash. We filled our credit card limits, and we only had money to pay our rents for 2 more months. So after that, we were not even zero. We were minus back then. So, and we thought that maybe it is time for us to quit the startup and go back to working again. But like with the final struggle, we managed to leap through a certain limit, and we started selling slowly. Like it, don't imagine that it will be like a key switch. It will not be in an instant. It will build gradually. And we saw that after a period of time, we can sell the tool. Of course, it don't generate a lot of revenue, but that potential, by using that potential, we told our story to investors, and they invested a very small money to keep us working for the next 6 months. Like it was not to hire people. It was not to give a lot of advertisements. It was not to build an office. It was just they gave us money to live for the next 6 months to show them what we can achieve if we have enough resources. And I think we showed them. But we were very close to working on Kolay, but I think we saved at the last moment.
Yeah, I'm happy that you didn't give up. But what is keeping a co-founder? What would be helpful to stay on track in this kind of moments? What would be your suggestion?
I think you have to push yourself to the last moment, but some people understand this something as something else, because you shouldn't be staying with the first product you built in the first day. You have to iterate on it. Like if it didn't work, you have to change it. It didn't work, you have to change it. So if you received a lot of feedback about something, you have to build it. And they say this is not worth any money, you have to delete it and build something else. So you have to force yourself. You have to keep trying until you see a click and you see a future. But there is a fine balance between pushing yourself to the limits and burning all your, let's say, dreams. So if you manage to believe yourself that this thing is not working, stop there. But we didn't lose our belief that the thing that we are building in Kolay will work. We believe that it will definitely work, but we didn't know when and with how much money and in which country. So we tried, change, build something else, try it again, and try to get money, and we failed. We tried to sell, and at the end of it, we managed to build something that can stay on their feet. But we didn't lose our belief onto the idea. Like, I'm not talking about the idea of the HR tool, but idea of building a tool to help companies in their HR part. So until you lose your belief to the idea, try everything, pivot. But if you lost it, there's no way going back. Because if you lost your belief on that, I think it won't be easy to go back to your old self.
Amazing. Efecan, we are about to finish our session, but if you have a few moments, I would like to ask one of our guest question to you. Would that be okay?
Yeah, it's okay for me.
Russia is asking that, how did you get your first customers to pay Kolay? How did you convince them? How was the process like?
It was very hard. Like to be honest, for the first 16 months, like 1.5 years, there was no paying customers. There was a simple tool, and we were going to meetings and showing what we have and getting their feedbacks. And we tried to build, like some companies were telling us that if you build that feature, we will buy it, and we build it and they don't buy. So it was a cycle like that, and it continued almost 16, 17 months. So like it is like, it's not like we went to a first meeting and we sold. It's not like that. Maybe we did 50 meetings, maybe 50, maybe more than 50. But I remember like I wasn't even in the first sales meeting. I was coding at the office. My two co-founders went to a meeting in a very far away part of Istanbul with a public transportation, with the with the akbil, I don't know how we call it, and they sold, and we didn't have a company, so we cannot invoice them. So we go to one of our friend of ours, and we want to we begged, basically, can you create an invoice for that and give us the money by cutting the tax? And so, but after 16 months, a lot of meetings, I remember it was a furniture company that were using Excels for their internal reportings, and they wanted to use Kolay just to see the list of employees and report how many male and female employees they have, like the percent of office headcounts and stuff like that. So it was not just a single point that we managed to sell it. It was just successions of a lot of things.
Yeah, usually it's coming with like the small things, binding the small things. Thank you, Efecan. This was a great session. I think there were a lot of nice experiences, and I loved your personal story as well. So thank you for being here and sharing your wisdom, your experience with us. I would be very happy to do other things with Kolay, with you and Gizem. We really like your approach as well. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for listening, and I hope I was helpful to even one person in that meeting. And if you have any further questions, just don't wait for another Zoom session. Just shoot me a LinkedIn invitation and question. If you don't request an investment from me, I will help as much as I can. So just contact me through LinkedIn or email. Thank you.
Awesome, Efecan. Thank you very much. This is
Have a nice day.
great.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Before closing, I would like to announce our next week's speaker. Next week, we will be talking to Ali Karabey, Managing Director of 212, which invests in unique teams with global ambitions to scale B2B technology startups. So we will be here next week on May 20th at the same time between 6 and 7 p.m. And before you leave, please fill out the survey. Daria will be posting it in the chat very shortly. This survey is very important for us to improve our sessions. So please fill it. See you next time. Thank you very much for being here. Kudos to everyone. Bye-bye.